My mom offered me $500 to skip my sister's wedding. I thought she was trying to keep me away from a family argument. I was wrong. That same night, I discovered my mother secretly owned part of the groom's company. Then I found a photograph of my father, who had supposedly been dead for 9 years. And when I finally saw him alive, he told me the wedding was never about love. It was about who would control a company worth millions. If you were in my position, would you walk away or dig until you uncover the truth? Tell me in the comments, and subscribe if you want to find out what happened next. My mother offered me $500 to miss my sister's wedding. She didn't whisper it. She didn't hesitate. She simply pushed a white envelope across the table and said, "Take the money, Victoria, and don't come." I stared at the envelope for several seconds before looking at her. Marcella Costa had always been direct when she wanted something. At 61, she had perfected the habit of making demands sound like reasonable suggestions. Her dark hair was cut short around her jaw, her posture was always straight, and she rarely looked nervous. That afternoon, she was nervous. I could tell because she kept rubbing her thumb against the edge of her wedding ring. I was Victoria Costa, 32 years old, and I worked in private equity. My job was to examine troubled businesses, find the problems management had missed, and decide whether those problems could be fixed. It had taught me one important habit. When someone gave me an answer before I asked a question, I wanted to know what they were hiding. I looked at the envelope. What's in it? $500. I heard you. Then take it. I didn't. We were sitting in a quiet corner of Bellamore, a restaurant my mother liked because the staff knew her name. Outside, late afternoon traffic moved slowly through downtown Chicago. My sister's wedding was 21 days away. Elena Costa was 28, a pediatric nurse, and the most optimistic person in our family. She was marrying Adrian Vale, the 34-year-old founder of North Star Meridian. According to everyone who knew him, Adrian was successful, intelligent, generous, and completely devoted to Elena. I wasn't convinced. Not because I had evidence against him, because of something much more specific. 3 months earlier, North Star Meridian had appeared on my firm's distressed investment list. I had reviewed its financial statements. The company was supposed to be healthy. It wasn't. North Star had a major logistics contract responsible for nearly 40% of its annual revenue. That contract was being renegotiated after the client discovered inconsistencies in North Star's performance reports. If the contract disappeared, North Star could lose millions within a single quarter. My firm had been considering buying its debt and eventually acquiring the company. I had been assigned to the preliminary review. Nobody in my family knew. Not Elena, not Adrian, and certainly not my mother. So, when Marcella offered me money to stay away from the wedding, I knew the timing couldn't be accidental. "Why don't you want me there?" I asked. She finally stopped rubbing her ring. "You always make things complicated." "That isn't an answer." "Victoria, please." "Mom, this is Elena's wedding." "I know. Then why are you paying me not to attend?" She looked toward the window. "Because Adrian's family doesn't want unnecessary tension." I almost smiled. "Adrian's family knows me? They've heard enough." "From whom?" She didn't answer. I pushed the envelope back. "No." Her eyes narrowed. "You don't even know what you're refusing." "I know I'm refusing $500 to abandon my sister on her wedding day." "You're being dramatic." "I'm being paid to disappear." "That is not what I said." "It is exactly what you said." For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she leaned toward me. "Just this once, Victoria. Do something for your sister, without asking questions." That sentence stayed with me. Not because it sounded like a mother's request, because it sounded like a warning. I stood. "I'm going to the wedding." Marcella's expression changed immediately. "Don't." It was the first time she sounded frightened. I looked at her. "Why?" She picked up her purse. "Because you don't understand what you're walking into." Then she left. I remained at the table, staring at the untouched envelope. $500. It wasn't enough money to make me curious, but it was enough to make me suspicious. And I had learned long ago that suspicion was usually cheaper to investigate before it became expensive. 2 hours later, I was back at my apartment in River North. I opened my laptop and pulled up the North Star Meridian file. The company's financial position had worsened since my last review. That wasn't unusual. What was unusual was the shareholder structure. I downloaded the latest filings and began reading. At 10:18 p.m., I found something that made me sit upright. A name appeared in the ownership records. Marcela Costa. I read it again. My mother owned 8.7% of North Star Meridian. I had never heard about it. I called her. She didn't answer. I called again. Still nothing. Then I called Elena. She picked up on the fourth ring. Vic, are you with Mom?
No. Why?
Does Mom own part of North Star? There was a long silence. What? You heard me. I didn't know she did. Are you sure? Why would I know that? Because you're marrying the CEO. Elena exhaled. Victoria, what is happening? I closed the laptop. I don't know yet. Is this about Adrian? Maybe. Did Mom say something? She offered me $500 to skip your wedding. Elena went silent again. She did what? I told her exactly what happened. When I finished, Elena didn't speak for several seconds. Then she said, "That's not normal."
No.
Did she say Adrian asked her? She implied his family didn't want me there. My family? Yes. That makes no sense. I agree. Elena's voice became quieter. Vic, Adrian has never said anything bad about you. I didn't say he did. But you don't trust him. I don't know him well enough to trust him. You've met him 4 times. Exactly. She laughed nervously. You're impossible. Probably. Then she asked, "Are you coming to the rehearsal dinner?" Yes. Good. She sounded relieved. Don't let Mom scare you away. I won't. We ended the call. I looked back at the shareholder report. My mother's name was still there. I enlarged the document and checked the acquisition date. 8 years ago. That was before Elena met Adrian. Before North Star became successful. Before I ever knew the company existed. I grabbed my coat. The next morning, I drove to my office before sunrise. Priya Nanduri was already there. She was 30, worked on my deal team, and had the rare ability to read 100 pages of legal documents without complaining once. I placed the shareholder report on her desk. Tell me I'm reading this wrong. She adjusted her glasses. That's your mother. Yes. She owns 8.7%. Yes. Does she know you're reviewing North Star?
No. Priya looked at me.
That's interesting. Very. She opened another database. Give me 10 minutes. I waited. Outside the glass walls of my office, employees began arriving. Phones rang. Elevators opened and closed. The city was waking up. At 8:07 a.m., Priya walked in carrying a printed file. You need to see this. I took it. What is it? Your mother's shares aren't ordinary. I looked at the document. They carried special voting rights. If North Star changes controlling ownership, Priya said, your mother can force the company to buy her shares at a predetermined valuation. I looked up. How high? She gave me the number. It was almost 4 times North Star's current market valuation. I sat back. That's impossible. It's in the agreement. Why would anyone give her that? I don't know. I read the clause again. Then I noticed the date. The agreement had been signed 2 weeks before my father died. My father, Victor Costa, had died 9 years earlier in a highway accident. I had spent years accepting the official explanation. Bad weather. A wet road. A truck that lost control. But now my mother owned a protected stake in a company connected to the family of the man my sister was about to marry. And she was paying me to stay away from the wedding. I called Priya. Pull every document involving North Star and my father. She looked at me. Are you sure?
No.
I closed the file. That's why I need to know. By noon, we had found nothing directly linking my father to North Star. But there was one unusual name appearing in several old documents. Gideon Rusk, former chief financial officer of North Star Meridian. I searched his records. He had left the company 7 years ago. No public statements. No interviews. No current employer. It looked like he had disappeared. Then, at 1:42 p.m., an email arrived in my private inbox. The sender was Gideon Rusk. The subject line contained 6 words. You should not attend the wedding. I opened it. There were only 3 sentences. Your mother is not the person you should be afraid of. Adrian Vale knows why. Ask him about Meridian Continuity Holdings. I read the message twice. Then I searched the company name. Nothing came up. No website. No public registration I could find. No press coverage. I forwarded the email to Priya. She called me less than a minute later. Victoria. What? Where did you get this? Gideon Rusk. I know. What do you mean, you know? I found Meridian Continuity Holdings. My grip tightened around the phone. Where? Delaware. Who owns it? She hesitated. That's the problem.
What?
The owner is listed through a trust. Whose trust? I'm still digging. A few seconds passed. Then Priya said something that made my stomach tighten. The trustee is Cashin Wren. I knew that name. Everyone in finance did. Cashin Wren was a private investor known for acquiring distressed businesses, stripping them down, and selling their most valuable assets. He was also the only son of Silas Wren, one of North Star's earliest financial backers. I looked at the email again. Your mother is not the person you should be afraid of. My mother had been frightened. Gideon had warned me. And now Cashin Wren was connected to a company I had never heard of. At 4:30 p.m., I drove to Elena's apartment. She opened the door wearing scrubs and holding a grocery bag. Why are you here? I walked inside. We need to talk about Adrian. Her smile disappeared. What happened? I handed her my phone. She read Gideon's email. When she reached the final line, she looked at me. What is Meridian Continuity Holdings? I don't know yet. Does Adrian know? That's what I'm going to ask him. Before Elena could answer, her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen. It was Adrian. She answered. Hey. Her expression changed as she listened. Then she handed the phone to me. He wants to talk to you. I took it. Adrian.
His voice was calm.
Too calm. Victoria. What is Meridian Continuity Holdings? Silence. Then he said, Who told you that name? Answer me. Where are you? Elena's apartment. Don't tell your mother. I looked at Elena. Why? Another pause. Then Adrian said, Because if Marcella knows you've heard that name, she will do something desperate. The line went dead. I lowered the phone. Elena stared at me. What did he say? I didn't answer immediately, because at that moment, another notification appeared on my phone. It was from my mother. A photograph. An old photograph of my father standing beside 2 men. One of them was Silas Wren. The other was Adrian Vale. But the photograph was dated 9 years ago. 3 months before my father died. I zoomed in. On the back of the photograph, my mother had written one sentence. Your father met Adrian long before Elena ever did. And suddenly, $500 no longer felt like an offer. It felt like the price my mother was willing to pay to keep me from discovering why. I had spent 9 years believing my father's last months were ordinary. They weren't. The photograph on Elena's phone changed that in less than a minute. My father, Victor Costa, stood beside Silas Wren and Adrian Vale, both younger than I remembered them. The date was printed on the back, March 14th, 9 years earlier, 3 months before my father's death. I looked at Elena. Did Adrian ever tell you he knew Dad?
No.
Did Mom?
No.
Then why does she have this? Elena took the phone from me and stared at the photograph again. Maybe she found it recently. Mom doesn't send things like this accidentally. Then what is she trying to tell you? I don't know. Before I could say anything else, Elena's phone rang again. Adrian. She answered. Where are you? His voice came through clearly. I'm outside. Elena looked toward the window. I moved beside her and saw a black sedan parked across the street. Adrian stood beside it. He wasn't alone. A tall man in a navy coat stood near the passenger door. I recognized him from the company filings. Cashin Wren. I turned back to Elena. Don't open the door. She frowned. Why? Because Cashin is with him. The phone went silent. Then Adrian said, Victoria, I know you're there. I didn't answer. He continued. I need 10 minutes.
No.
This concerns your father. That got my attention. I unlocked the door, but kept the chain in place. Adrian stood outside. Cashin remained near the car. What do you want? I asked. Adrian looked at Elena. I need to speak with Victoria alone. No, Elena said. He nodded. Fair. He reached into his coat and removed a thin black folder. This belonged to Victor. My stomach tightened. Where did you get it? From Silas. Why would Silas have my father's things? Because your father worked for him. That isn't true. Adrian looked directly at me. You should ask your mother. I opened the door. Elena grabbed my arm. Vic, I'll be fine. Adrian handed me the folder. Then he said quietly, don't open it here. Why? Because Cashin doesn't know what's inside. I looked past him. Cashin was watching us. His expression was calm, almost bored. Then Adrian walked back to the sedan. Cashin opened the passenger door. Before getting in, Adrian turned. Victoria, if your mother tells you she was protecting the family, don't believe her. The car drove away. I closed the door. Elena stared at the folder. Open it. I did. Inside were bank statements, copies of contracts, and handwritten notes in my father's handwriting. Most of the pages concerned Costa Industrial Holdings, the family business my father had operated before his death. The last page was different. It contained 3 names: Silas Wren, Gideon Rusk, Adrian Vale. Underneath them, my father had written, one of these men is lying. One is being used. One knows what happened. I read it twice. Elena whispered, which one? I don't know. A second note was attached. If Victoria ever finds this, do not let Marcella explain it first. I stopped. My father had written my name, not Elena's. Mine. And he had specifically warned me not to let my mother explain. I called Marcella. She answered immediately. Where are you? At Elena's. Did Adrian come there? Yes. Silence. You need to leave. Why? Victoria, please. Who is Cashin Wren? Her breathing changed. That was enough. You know him. Yes. How? I can't explain this over the phone. Then explain it in person. I will. When? Tomorrow morning. No. Tonight. She hesitated. Fine. We agreed to meet at her house. Before leaving, I photographed every document in the folder and sent copies to Priya. She replied almost instantly. Don't trust the originals. I called her. What does that mean? Some of these contracts have been altered. How can you tell? Different paper stock. Different signatures. Your father signed several documents with a fountain pen. These copies were scanned from forms signed with the ballpoint. I looked at the folder. So, someone replaced documents. Or manufactured them. Can you identify which ones are real? Not remotely. I need the originals. I'll find them. Victoria, there's something else. What? I searched Adrian's history. And he didn't work at North Star 9 years ago. I frowned. He was 25. Exactly. So, why was he with Dad? I don't know. Keep digging. I will. I drove to my mother's house after 8. Marcella opened the door before I knocked. She looked at the folder in my hand. You found it. That sentence confirmed everything. You knew this existed. She closed her eyes. Yes. Why didn't you tell me? Because your father asked me not to. He specifically wrote that you shouldn't explain. She looked at me. You read that? Yes. Her face tightened. Then you know why. No. I know Dad didn't trust you. She flinched. That was the first time I'd ever seen my mother physically react to my words. She walked into the living room. I followed. Sit down. I'd rather stand. She nodded. Your father believed Adrian was dangerous. Then why was he meeting him? He wasn't meeting Adrian for himself. For whom? Silas. I waited. Marcella continued. Your father discovered that Silas was using North Star to move money through several companies. Why would Dad care? Because some of that money passed through our family business. I looked at the documents. Did Dad steal money?
No.
Did you? She looked down. I signed things. That isn't what I asked. I moved money because Silas threatened to destroy us. Threatened us with what? Debt. I laughed once. That's your explanation? He controlled our creditors. Then why didn't Dad go to the police? He tried. The room became quiet. What happened? He was going to testify. Against Silas? Yes. Then why did Adrian know him? Marcella looked at the floor. Because Adrian was working for Silas. I felt a sudden chill. Doing what? Watching your father. I stepped backward. Adrian was spying on Dad? Yes. And Elena has no idea?
No.
Does Adrian know I know? Yes.
How?
Because I told him. I stared at her. You told Adrian? I had no choice. There is always a choice. She shook her head. Not when they threaten your children. That was the first time she mentioned Elena. Not herself. Not my father. My sister. Who threatened her? Marcella didn't answer. I moved closer. Mom. She whispered a name. Cashin. I knew it already, but hearing it from her made it real. What does he want? North Star. Why? Because North Star isn't really about the software. She went to a cabinet and removed a locked metal box. She placed it on the table. I kept this because I was afraid. Of Cashin. Of everyone. She opened it. Inside was a key, an old USB drive, and a photograph. The photograph showed my father standing outside a warehouse. A younger Adrian was visible in the background. But he wasn't watching my father. He was looking directly at the camera, as if he knew someone was photographing him. I picked up the USB drive. What is this? Your father gave it to me 2 days before he died. Why didn't you give it to me? Because I was told that if I did, Elena would disappear. I stared at her. Who told you? Marcella looked toward the window. I never saw his face. That isn't an answer. He called from different numbers. He knew where Elena went to school. He knew where you worked. He knew everything. Cashin? I don't know. My phone vibrated.
Priya.
I answered. Victoria, I found something. What? I traced the original ownership documents for Meridian Continuity Holdings. And the trust was created 9 years ago. By Cashin?
No.
Then who?
Priya paused.
Your father. I couldn't speak. My mother looked at me. She knew immediately that something had happened. Priya continued. Victoria, there's another beneficiary.
Who?
Elena Costa. I looked at my sister's name on the screen, then at my mother, then at the USB drive. My father had created a company 9 years ago, named Elena as a beneficiary, and somehow connected it to North Star before Adrian even married her. But the strangest part was still ahead. Priya lowered her voice. The trust has a controlling condition. What condition? It activates only after Elena legally marries Adrian Vale. I looked at my mother. She had gone completely still. The wedding wasn't simply a wedding. Someone had designed it as a financial trigger. And my father had apparently planned for it 9 years before Elena ever met Adrian. I looked at the $500 envelope still sitting on my mother's table. Then I understood why she had wanted me gone. She wasn't afraid I would ruin the wedding. She was afraid I would discover what the wedding was designed to unlock. I looked at my mother and asked the question neither of us wanted to answer. What happens if Elena marries Adrian? Marcella didn't respond. I asked again. What does the trust activate? She lowered herself into a chair. Control. Control of what? North Star. I looked at the USB drive in my hand. My father's handwriting was everywhere in the documents, but the meaning was becoming harder to understand. If Dad created the trust, why would he make Elena marrying Adrian a condition? He didn't trust Adrian. Then why connect them? Because he knew Adrian would eventually come looking for North Star. That made no sense. I pulled out a chair. Start from the beginning. Marcella shook her head. I don't know the beginning. Then tell me what you know. She took a breath. 9 years ago, your father discovered that Silas Wren wanted to take control of North Star. Silas had financed the company, but he didn't have enough voting power to control it. Your father found a way to create a separate trust that could block any forced transfer. Why put Elena in it? Because you were already working in finance. I stared at her. What does that have to do with anything? Your father believed you would be the first person Silas would watch. That stopped me. He knew you were studying corporate finance. He knew what kind of person you were becoming. He thought if anything happened to him, you would investigate. And Elena? She was invisible. I almost laughed. My sister was the beneficiary because nobody considered her a threat. Marcella nodded. That was the point. I stood and walked toward the window. Outside, rain had started falling over the street. For years, I had thought my father had died, leaving behind a broken business and a grieving family. Now I was learning that he had built a financial trap before his death. And my sister's wedding was the key. My phone buzzed.
Priya.
I answered. Tell me you found something useful. I found something worse. Go ahead. The trust isn't simply designed to activate when Elena marries Adrian. I waited. It activates when she marries Adrian while North Star is under a change of control event. What does that mean? Someone has to be attempting to acquire or restructure the company. I looked at the documents. That's happening now. Yes. Who is initiating it? That's the problem. Cashin?
Possibly.
But there's another buyer.
Who?
Your firm. I closed my eyes. Of course. My employer had been preparing to acquire North Star's debt for months. Someone had deliberately placed North Star in distress. Then they had arranged a wedding that could activate my father's trust when the acquisition occurred. It was too coordinated to be coincidence. Priya, pull the acquisition chain. I already did. And the first creditor who approached us was Meridian Capital. I froze. Meridian Capital is owned by Cashin Wren. Yes. I looked at my mother. She was watching me. My firm was brought into the deal by Cashin. Looks like it. I hung up. Marcella stood. Now you understand why I wanted you away from the wedding.
No.
I turned toward her. Now I understand why you were afraid. She looked confused. Those aren't the same thing. What did Cashin promise you? She didn't answer. Mom. He said if I kept you away, Elena would remain safe. And you believed him? I had to. You didn't have to accept $500. She looked at the envelope. That was my idea. I frowned. What? Cashin never offered you money. I stared at her. He told me to keep you away. The $500 was mine. Why that amount? Because I knew you would insult me if I offered more. Despite everything, I almost smiled. That sounded exactly like my mother. Then her expression hardened. He knew you wouldn't stay away for money. So, why tell you to offer it? He wanted to see whether you would investigate. I stopped smiling. What? Cashin wanted to know how suspicious you were. The room felt colder. The $500 hadn't been a bribe.
It had been a test.
Someone had been measuring me. I picked up the USB drive. Where can I open this? Not here. Why? Marcella looked toward the front door. Because this house isn't safe. We left through the back entrance. 10 minutes later, we were sitting inside my car 2 blocks away. I inserted the USB drive into my laptop. A single folder appeared. VC_final. I opened it. There were 17 audio recordings. The first one was dated 8 years ago. My father's voice filled the car. If you're hearing this, Marcella failed to destroy the files. My mother looked away. I played the recording. My father continued. Silas Wren isn't the only person involved. Adrian Vale is younger than most of the people around him, but he understands technology better than any of them. He built the mechanism that allows the money to disappear. I looked at my mother. She said nothing. The recording continued. I don't know whether Adrian is working for Silas willingly. What I know is that he has access to every transaction. The recording ended. I opened the second file. My father's voice returned. Gideon Rusk believes Adrian is stealing from North Star. I believe Adrian is preparing something larger. Third file. Cashin Wren has begun contacting my family.
Fourth.
Marcella is frightened.
Fifth.
If anything happens to me, Elena must marry no one connected to Silas Wren. I stopped the recording. Elena was already engaged to Adrian. The file was 9 years old, but that meant my father had somehow predicted the exact danger years before. Then I noticed something. The files weren't arranged chronologically. The final recording had been modified recently. I opened it. My father's voice did not play. Instead, another voice did.
Adrian.
Victoria, if you're listening to this, your father was right about one thing. I froze. Adrian's voice continued. He didn't know whom to trust. Then the recording ended. I stared at the screen. How did Adrian get into Dad's files? Marcella whispered. He must have had a copy. Or access. I opened the metadata. The file had been accessed 2 days earlier. From a device registered to North Star Meridian. Someone had opened my father's recording recently. Someone knew I would find it.
My phone rang.
Unknown number. I answered. Hello. A man's voice said, You should stop. Who is this? You're getting close to something you don't understand. Cashin? Silence. Then the man said, Your sister's wedding is 3 weeks away. Let it happen.
Why?
Because if you interfere, Elena loses everything. The call ended. I immediately called the number back. Disconnected. Marcella stared at me. What did he say? He threatened Elena. She closed her eyes. Then she said something I wasn't prepared to hear. I know where Cashin keeps his records. I looked at her. Where? An office beneath the old Wren shipping warehouse. Why do you know that? Because I used to take documents there. For Cashin? For Silas. How long? Years. I felt anger rising. You've been involved with them this entire time. I was trying to get out. You kept lying. I was trying to protect you. You don't get to call that protection anymore.
She looked at me.
I know. That evening, I drove to the old warehouse alone. The building stood near the river, surrounded by empty industrial lots and closed loading facilities. I had expected security. There was none. That worried me more. I entered through a side door. The first floor was dark. I found a staircase leading underground. At the bottom was a corridor with several locked offices. One door stood open. Inside were filing cabinets. I searched the nearest one. Nothing. Then I found a drawer labeled Costa. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were copies of my father's contracts, bank records, photographs, and a folder containing my name. I opened it. The first page was dated 6 years ago. It was a surveillance report. My apartment address. My employer. My daily schedule. My friends. My sister's workplace. I kept reading. Someone had been monitoring my family for years. Then I reached the final page. It contained a recent photograph. Me entering my office. The date was yesterday. Written underneath it were 4 words. She has started digging. I heard footsteps outside. I shut the folder. Someone was coming down the corridor. I turned off the light. The footsteps stopped outside the room. A man spoke. I know you're in there, Victoria.
It was Adrian.
I stepped backward. How did you find me? He opened the door. I followed your mother.
Why?
Because Cashin is going to kill her.
I stared at him.
You expect me to believe that?
No.
He stepped inside. I expect you to understand that I'm not the person you should be fighting. Then tell me who is. Adrian looked at the folder in my hand. Your father didn't create the trust to stop Cashin. I frowned. Then who? Adrian's face changed. He created it to stop me. I couldn't move.
Why?
Adrian took a breath. Because 9 years ago, I was the one who caused the accident that killed your father. The room went silent. And for the first time since I had seen that photograph, I realized the truth might be much worse than the conspiracy I had been investigating. For 9 years, I had blamed a wet highway, a careless truck driver, and bad weather for my father's death. Now Adrian Vale was standing in front of me, telling me he had caused it. I couldn't speak. The warehouse office suddenly felt too small. You killed my father? Adrian didn't move. I caused the accident. That's not the same thing. I know. Then explain it. He looked toward the corridor. We have to leave. I stepped closer. You don't get to walk into a room full of my father's files and tell me you killed him, then ask me to follow you. I know. Stop saying that.
His jaw tightened.
Victoria, Cashin knows you're here.
How?
He has cameras throughout this building. I looked at the ceiling. Then let him watch. Adrian lowered his voice. If Cashin gets the folder you're holding, your sister won't make it to the wedding. That sentence made me stop. You keep threatening me with Elena. I'm trying to keep her alive. By marrying her?
No. He looked at me.
By making sure she never marries me. I stared at him. That was not what I expected. Then why are you still engaged? Because Cashin arranged it. That's impossible. He controls the debt.
He controls the company board.
He controls the people around me.
You're the CEO.
On paper. He took a step toward me. Victoria, North Star has been controlled by Silas Wren's family for years. Adrian Vale is only the name they put in front of the cameras. I didn't lower the folder. Then tell me about my father. Adrian nodded. 9 years ago, your father discovered the money transfers. He confronted Silas. Silas sent me to recover the documents. You were working for him? Yes. What happened? I found your father leaving his office. And I followed him.
Why?
He had the evidence. Adrian swallowed. I was supposed to make him stop. Did you threaten him? Yes. Did you attack him?
No.
Did you cause the crash? I followed him onto the highway. His voice became quieter. A truck driver lost control during a storm. Your father's car swerved. I was behind him. I stopped, but I didn't call for help. My chest tightened.
Why?
Because Silas's people arrived first.
I stared at him.
What does that mean? They took the evidence. And left my father? He was already dead. I didn't believe him. Not completely. You expect me to believe you watched my father die and then did nothing? I was 25. So, I was terrified. That doesn't excuse it. I know. He looked down. I've spent 9 years trying to undo what I did. By marrying my sister?
No.
He reached into his coat and removed another envelope. By keeping Elena away from Cashin. I opened it. Inside was a copy of an agreement between Adrian and Cashin. The date was 2 years earlier. Cashin had promised Adrian control of North Star in exchange for one thing. Marriage to Elena. I read the clause twice. Why would Cashin care who you marry? Because your father's trust needs Elena to become the legal beneficiary. I looked up. He needs her. Yes. And you? I need her to stay alive. I hated how convincing he sounded, but I still didn't trust him. Why tell me now? Because Cashin changed the plan. What plan? He doesn't want Elena to inherit North Star anymore. Then what does he want? Adrian looked at the folder in my hand. He wants you. I felt a chill. Me? Your father's trust contains a second condition. What? If Elena refuses to activate the trust, control can pass to the next eligible cost heir. I stared at him. That's me. Yes. So Cashin has been trying to keep me away because he doesn't want me to become the owner. Exactly. I thought about the $500, the email, the surveillance reports, my mother's fear. Everything suddenly connected. Cashin hadn't been afraid I would expose the wedding. He had been afraid I would inherit the company. I closed the folder. Then why did he want Elena to marry you? To force the trust into activation while preventing you from reaching it. But you said the trust could transfer to me. If Elena activates it willingly, she becomes the controlling beneficiary. And if she doesn't, you become the fallback. I looked at him. So, the wedding was a trap. Yes. And my mother knew. She knew part of it. Did you tell her? No. Then who did? Adrian didn't answer. That hesitation was enough. Cashin. Yes. I stepped away from him. Why would Cashin tell my mother? To make her cooperate. And she did. Yes. The anger came back. I thought about the envelope on the restaurant table. My mother had been afraid, but she had still tried to make me disappear. Adrian watched me. You need to leave. Not without these. I held up the folder. Take them.
What?
Take everything. I frowned.
Why?
Because I need you to see the whole picture. He opened a filing cabinet. Inside were dozens of folders. Cashin has been moving money through North Star for years. Your father's investigation stopped him temporarily. After your father's death, Silas took control. Where is Silas now? London. Then why isn't he involved? He is. Adrian handed me a second folder. Silas is sick. Cashin took over the operation 18 months ago. I opened it. There were recent bank records, shell companies, property purchases, payments to private investigators. Then I saw something familiar. A payment made to a company called Cost Advisory. My family name. What's this? Adrian looked at it. I don't know. The company had been created 6 months ago. The listed director was my mother. I called her. She answered immediately. Victoria, did you create Cost Advisory? Silence. Mom, yes.
Why?
I was told to. By Cashin? Yes. What does it do? Nothing. That isn't true. She began crying. I didn't know. You keep saying that. I signed documents. Why? Because they threatened Elena. I closed my eyes. What did you sign? I don't know. You need to find out. I can't. You can. Victoria, please listen to me. Her voice became desperate. Leave the company alone.
Why?
Because Cashin isn't the only person watching you. The call ended. I looked at Adrian. What does that mean? He shook his head. I don't know. Then the lights went out. The warehouse became completely dark. Adrian grabbed my arm. Stay behind me. I pulled away. I don't need protection from you. A gunshot sounded in the hallway. I froze. Adrian pushed me behind the desk. Another shot hit the door frame. Someone shouted from outside. Give me the folder. Adrian whispered. That's Cashin's security team. How many? At least 3. Can we get out? There is another exit. We moved through the back of the office. Adrian opened a hidden door behind the filing cabinets. A narrow stairway led upward. We ran. At the top, we emerged into an alley behind the warehouse. A black SUV was waiting. Adrian opened the passenger door. I hesitated. Get in. I don't trust you. You don't have to. Another gunshot echoed from the warehouse. I got in. Adrian drove. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Finally, I asked, where are we going? Somewhere Cashin won't expect. Where? Your father's old office. I turned toward him. That building was sold. Not all of it. 20 minutes later, we stopped in front of an old brick building in the West Loop. Adrian led me through a locked side entrance. The interior had been abandoned for years. Dust covered the desks. Old files remained stacked against the walls. He walked to a cabinet and entered a code. The door opened. Inside was a safe. My father left this? Yes. How do you know? Because I helped him install it. I looked at him. When? 2 weeks before the accident. That made my stomach tighten. You were helping my father? Before I betrayed him. I didn't answer. He opened the safe. Inside was a single envelope. My name was written across it. For Victoria, if Adrian ever tells you the truth. My hands shook as I opened it. The letter was short. My father's handwriting was unmistakable. Victoria, if Adrian has finally told you what happened, then he has reached the point where fear is no longer useful to him. Do not forgive him, because he confesses. Do not condemn him, because he confesses. Judge him by what he does after the truth becomes dangerous. I read the final paragraph. There is one person you must find before the wedding. Her name is Celestine Arquette. I looked at Adrian. Who is Celestine Arquette? He went pale. You know her? I thought she was dead. I stared at him. Why? Because Cashin told me he killed her. I read the letter again. Who is she? Adrian took a breath. She was your father's attorney. Then why would Cashin want her dead? Because she knows who actually ordered your father's death. I felt my pulse quicken. Who? Adrian looked toward the door. Before he could answer, his phone rang. He checked the screen. The caller ID showed a number he clearly recognized. He answered. A woman's voice came through the speaker. Adrian, if Victoria is with you, tell her to stop looking for me. Adrian stood completely still. I whispered, Celestine? There was a pause. Then the woman answered. Yes. I took the phone from Adrian. Where are you? I can't tell you.
Why?
Because the person who ordered your father's death is not Cashin. I felt the room change. Who is it? Celestine's voice became almost inaudible. Your father was killed because he discovered who really owned North Star. Who? She hesitated. Then she said the one thing I never expected. Victoria, the person who owns North Star isn't Adrian, Cashin, or Silas. I waited. It's someone in your family. The call ended. I looked at Adrian. For the first time since we entered the building, he looked genuinely afraid. And then my phone received a photograph. It showed Celestine Arquette alive, standing beside my mother, taken that morning. The photograph showed my mother standing beside Celestine Arquette. Both women were alive. Both were looking directly at the camera. And the timestamp said the picture had been taken less than an hour earlier. I stared at it until the screen blurred. Adrian stood beside me. That's Celestine. I know. Then she's been alive this entire time. Yes. And my mother knew where she was. Yes. I looked at him. Did you know?
No.
That answer came too quickly. I held up the phone. Don't lie to me again. I'm not. Then why did Cashin tell you she was dead? Because he wanted me to believe he had eliminated every witness. Every witness to what? Adrian didn't answer. I turned toward the old office. We're going to find Celestine. She'll contact us when she's ready.
No.
Victoria. She just told me someone in my family owns North Star. I looked directly at him. If I wait, somebody else decides what happens next. He didn't argue. 10 minutes later, we were back in his car. The rain had stopped, but the roads were still wet. Traffic moved slowly through the West Loop. I called my mother. She didn't answer. I called again. Nothing. Then I sent her the photograph. Her reply came less than a minute later.
Come alone.
I showed Adrian.
No.
I looked at him.
Why?
Because that's exactly what Cashin would want. It's my mother. And Celestine. Exactly. He shook his head. You don't know whether that photograph is recent. The timestamp is from this morning. That can be altered. Everything can be altered according to you. Because everything we've seen has been manipulated. I couldn't argue with that. Still, I wasn't going to stay home. I called Priya. Can you trace my mother's phone? I'll try. I need her location. Give me 5 minutes. While we waited, Adrian drove toward my mother's house. Halfway there, Priya called. Victoria, don't go there.
Why?
Your mother isn't there. How do you know? Her phone is moving. Where? North. Toward the river? Yes. I looked at Adrian. Drive. 20 minutes later, we reached a private marina on the Chicago River. My mother's car was parked near the entrance.
Her phone was inside.
She wasn't. I searched the dock. At the end of the pier stood a woman in a beige coat. She turned when she heard us. It was Celestine. She was older than I expected, perhaps in her late 60s, with short silver hair and a small scar near her left eyebrow. She didn't look frightened. She looked tired. You're Victoria. Yes. Your father talked about you. Where is my mother? Safe. That's not an answer. Celestine looked at Adrian. He came too. I wasn't invited, Adrian said. No, she replied. But I expected you. I stepped closer. You said someone in my family owns North Star. Celestine nodded. Your father discovered it 8 years before his death.
Who?
Your mother. I stopped. Adrian looked at Celestine. That isn't possible. Celestine gave him a hard look. You're still making assumptions. I turned to her. Explain. Your father never owned North Star. I know. He didn't want to own it. Then what did he want? Control. She pointed toward the river. Silas Wren financed North Star. Your father discovered that Silas had placed ownership into a series of trusts. One of those trusts was controlled by your mother. I felt my chest tighten. My mother? Yes.
Why?
Because your father believed she was the only person Silas trusted enough to sign the final transfer. I thought about the shareholder documents. The 8.7%. The special voting rights. You're saying my mother owns more than 8.7%? Legally, no. Then what? Then officially, she controls the rest. The pieces started moving. North Star wasn't simply a company my mother had invested in. She had been placed inside its ownership structure. But why hide it? I asked. Why didn't my father tell me? Because he believed someone was monitoring you. Who? Adrian. I turned. Adrian didn't defend himself. Celestine continued. He wasn't the only one. Cashin?
No.
Then who? She looked at me. Your father suspected Marcella was working with Silas. I felt anger rise again. My mother admitted she moved money for Silas. She did. So Dad suspected her. He had proof. What proof? Celestine reached inside her coat. She removed a small envelope. This. I took it. Inside was a notarized statement signed by my father. It said Marcella had agreed to transfer control of North Star to a private trust. The beneficiary was listed as Costa Family Continuity Trust. I recognized the name. The trust Priya had found. But there was another page. The beneficiary wasn't Elena. It was me. I looked at Celestine. Why did Priya say Elena was the beneficiary? Because Elena is the public beneficiary. What does that mean? Your father created 2 layers. I read the documents again. Why? To protect the real beneficiary. Me. Celestine nodded. Your father believed that if anyone discovered you were the ultimate beneficiary, they would come after you. I looked at Adrian. He was staring at the document. Did you know? No. Celestine gave him a cold smile. That's why Silas never trusted you with the whole plan. Adrian looked at her. You knew. I knew enough. Then a voice came from behind us. You always did. My mother walked onto the pier. She was alone. I turned toward her. Mom. She stopped a few feet away. I didn't want you to find out like this. How did you want me to find out? When it was safe. It was never safe. She looked at Celestine. You shouldn't have brought her here. Celestine replied. She deserved the truth. My mother looked at me. I never wanted North Star. Then why control it? Because your father asked me to. You said he was investigating you. He was. Which one is true? Both. I felt exhausted. Explain everything. My mother sat on a bench. 9 years ago, your father discovered that Silas was using North Star to hide money. He also discovered that Silas wanted to eliminate him. So Dad knew he was in danger. Yes. And he trusted you? He didn't know whether he could. Then why put the company in your name? Because I was already inside the structure. She looked down at her hands. Silas had made me a trustee years earlier. Your father discovered that the trust could be redirected if I signed one document. Did you sign it? Yes. And that made you the owner? Not exactly, Celestine answered. It made Marcella the gatekeeper. I understood. My mother had control without appearing to own anything. That was why her name appeared on only part of the shares. That was why Cashin needed her cooperation. That was why my father had created the second trust. I looked at her. Why did you help Cashin? Her eyes filled with tears. Because he found out about Elena. What did he know? That she was the public beneficiary. And he threatened her. Yes. Did you ever intend to give him North Star? No. Then what were you doing? Buying time. I shook my head. You lied to me. I know. You tried to make me miss Elena's wedding. I was trying to keep Cashin from realizing you were the real beneficiary. By making me disappear? Yes. I looked away. For the first time, I understood why the $500 had been such a precise amount. My mother wasn't trying to insult me. She was trying to create distance between me and the people watching her. It didn't make what she did right, but it made it understandable. Then Celestine spoke. There's something else. I looked at her. Your father didn't die because he knew about North Star. What did he discover? That Silas wasn't the person controlling the money. I felt my stomach tighten. Who was? Celestine looked at my mother. My mother closed her eyes. Don't, she whispered. Celestine ignored her. Your father discovered that someone had been using his identity to authorize transactions. Who? Someone who had access to his signature. I thought about the altered documents. Different ink. Different signatures. Who had access? Celestine answered quietly. Marcella. I turned toward my mother. She shook her head. I didn't forge his signature. Then who did? I don't know. Celestine stepped closer. Your father knew someone was using your mother's access. Did he know who? Yes. Who? She looked at me. Your father wrote the name down. Where? In the original trust documents. I waited. Celestine continued. The name wasn't Silas Wren. Cashin?
No.
Adrian?
No.
Then who? She didn't answer. My mother stood. Victoria, you need to leave.
Why?
Because the person you're looking for is already here. I looked around the marina. There were no other people on the pier. Then my phone vibrated. A message from Priya. I traced the trust amendment. It was filed this morning. I called her immediately. What changed? Someone removed your mother as trustee. Who replaced her? Priya was silent. Victoria, you need to hear this. Tell me. The new trustee is registered under the name Victor Costa. My father's name. I stared at the screen. That isn't possible. I know. Dad is dead. I know. Then who filed it? I don't know. I looked at Celestine. Her face had gone pale. She whispered, he's alive. I couldn't breathe. What? Victor Costa. My father? Celestine nodded. He didn't die in that accident. The world seemed to stop. My mother covered her mouth. Adrian stepped backward. I looked at him. You knew?
No.
Then what happened? Celestine reached into her coat and removed another photograph. She handed it to me. It showed a man standing outside a train station. Older, gray at the temples, but unmistakable. My father. On the back was a date from 3 days earlier. And beneath it, one sentence in his handwriting. Victoria must never learn that I survived until the wedding begins. For 9 years, I had mourned a dead man. 3 days earlier, that man had apparently signed a legal document. And now I was holding a photograph of him standing outside a train station. My father was alive. I looked at Celestine. Where is he? She didn't answer. Where is my father? Victoria, you need to calm down.
No.
My voice came out louder than I expected. You told me he was alive. You don't get to tell me to calm down. My mother stepped toward me. Victoria. I turned on her. You knew. She shook her head. Not until recently. That's a lie. I swear. You let me bury him. Her eyes filled with tears. I thought he was dead. Then how do you explain this? I held up the photograph. She stared at it. I can't. Adrian moved closer. Celestine. Who took that picture? A private investigator. Who hired him? She looked at me. Your father. The answer made no sense. He hired someone to photograph himself?
No.
He hired someone to document the people following him. I looked again at the picture. My father stood outside Union Station. He was older, thinner, but it was him. The same narrow face, the same posture, the same scar above his left eyebrow from a childhood bicycle accident. I had seen that face every day of my childhood. There was no mistake. Why would he stay away from us? Celestine lowered her voice. Because he believed the people who wanted him dead would eventually use you and Elena to find him. My mother covered her face. I looked at her. Did he ever contact you? Yes. When? 6 months ago. 6 months. She nodded. What did he say? He asked about you. Only me? And Elena. Why didn't you tell us? He told me not to. I laughed bitterly. Everyone keeps saying Dad told them not to tell me. Because he believed you would investigate. I did investigate. And that's why he's ready now. I stared at Celestine. Ready for what?
The wedding.
There it was again. The wedding. Every road led back to that ceremony. I suddenly understood why my mother had been desperate to keep me away. Not because she wanted to protect the wedding. Because my father's plan had been designed around it. What happens when Elena marries Adrian? Celestine looked at Adrian. He answered. The trust changes control. To whom?
To you.
I frowned. Me? Yes. But you said Elena was the beneficiary. Publicly, Celestine said. Your father created Elena's position to conceal yours. I looked at my mother. Why didn't you tell me? Because if I told you, you would come looking for him. And that would be dangerous. Yes. I shook my head. You don't understand. I already spent 9 years believing he was dead. My mother began crying. I know.
No.
You don't. She looked at me. I dreamed about him for years. Her face crumpled. I know. You knew he was alive. I didn't know. When did you find out? 6 months ago. I looked away. That was enough. The anger remained, but something else had replaced it.
Hope.
A dangerous kind of hope. My father was alive. Somewhere. And he had left instructions for me. I turned to Celestine. Take me to him. She hesitated. I can't. Why? Because he wants you to come to him. When? Tomorrow. I frowned. Why tomorrow? Because the wedding begins at 3. I looked at Adrian. He suddenly understood. That's the activation point. Celestine nodded. Your father wants Victoria to enter the wedding knowing the truth. Why? Because the trust cannot be activated remotely. What does that mean? You have to personally witness the transfer. I looked at my mother. So that's why Cashin wanted me gone. Yes. And that's why he paid you to make me disappear. He didn't pay me. I know. My phone vibrated.
Priya.
I answered. Tell me something good. I found the person who filed the amendment.
Who?
A lawyer named Dorian Voss. I didn't recognize the name. Who does he work for? That's the interesting part. Go on. He works for your father. I stopped. Victor Costa hired him? Apparently. When? 6 days ago. I looked at Celestine. Where is Dorian? He's at the courthouse. I thanked Priya and ended the call. Adrian looked at me. We need to go. You're coming? Yes. I shook my head. I don't trust you. You don't have to. Then why are you helping me? He looked toward the river. Because your father gave me one last chance. What does that mean? Before the accident, he told me something. What? Adrian swallowed. He said that if he ever disappeared, I had to protect you and Elena. I stared at him. And you failed. Yes. Then why should I believe you won't fail again? You shouldn't. That was the most honest thing he had said to me. We drove to the courthouse. Dorian Voss was waiting near the entrance. He was a thin man in his 50s with silver hair and a leather briefcase.
He looked at me.
Victoria Costa? Yes. He handed me an envelope. Your father instructed me to give you this only after the trust amendment was filed. I opened it. A letter. My father's handwriting. Victoria, if you are reading this, then the people who tried to control North Star have finally exposed themselves. I am sorry. I stopped. The next sentence made my throat tighten. I am sorry that you had to believe I was dead. I continued. I stayed away because I believed fear would keep you safe. I was wrong. The person I feared most was not Silas. I looked at Adrian. It was someone closer to our family. My hands began shaking. The final paragraph was short. Do not trust the person who tells you the wedding must happen. I looked at Dorian. Who is he warning me about? Dorian's expression changed. He didn't tell me. Then why give me the letter? Because the next instruction isn't for me. He opened his briefcase. Inside was a sealed document. The trust contains a final beneficiary clause. I took it. What's the clause? You'll find out when the wedding begins. I stared at him. That's ridiculous. Your father designed it that way. Why? Because he believed anyone who knew the complete plan could be forced to reveal it. I hated that logic. But it was exactly the kind of thing my father would have done. Then Dorian looked at Adrian. You need to leave. Adrian frowned. Why? Because your name appears in the final clause. Adrian went still. What does it say? Dorian closed the briefcase. Nothing good. I looked at Adrian. What did you do? Nothing. Then why are you afraid? He didn't answer. Dorian stepped between us. Victoria, your father wanted you to know one thing before tomorrow. What? He didn't survive the accident alone. I stared at him. What does that mean? Someone pulled him from the wreckage. Who? Dorian looked at my mother. She whispered. I don't know. Dorian nodded. Neither does your father. That made no sense. If Dad doesn't know, how can you? Because the person who saved him left a message. What message? Dorian opened his briefcase again. He removed a photograph. It showed the wreckage of my father's car. A truck lay several yards away. Emergency lights flashed through the rain. But in the corner of the photograph, there was a person standing beside my father's car. A woman. I recognized her immediately. My mother. I looked at her. You were there. She began crying. I went after him. You told me you were at home. I lied. You watched him crash. I arrived after. Then why did everyone say you weren't there? Because I was afraid. Of what? She looked at Celestine. Of the person who pulled him from the car. Celestine stepped forward. That person wasn't Silas. Who was it? My mother looked directly at me. I don't know. Then the courthouse doors opened. A man walked out. He was older. His hair was gray. He wore a dark coat and carried a black walking cane. I knew him before he looked at me. My body reacted before my mind could. My father stopped. His eyes met mine. Neither of us spoke. For 9 years, I had imagined seeing him again. In every version, I had known what to say. I had imagined anger. I had imagined tears. I had imagined asking why. Instead, I could only whisper one word. Dad. He nodded. Victoria. I walked toward him. Then I stopped. Because behind him stood a woman I recognized from the old surveillance photographs. The person who had been following my father for years. The person who had access to my family's records. The person my father had warned me about. My sister Elena. She was holding a folder. And she looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. Fear. Victoria, she said, don't come any closer. My father turned toward her. Elena, it's time. She shook her head. No. I looked between them. What is happening? Elena opened the folder. Inside was a signed document. My name was at the top. And beneath it was a transfer of ownership for North Star Meridian. The signature looked exactly like mine. I stared at it. I never signed this. Elena's voice broke. I know. Then who did? She looked at her father. He closed his eyes. And when he opened them again, he finally gave me the answer that changed everything. Your mother did. I turned toward Marcella. She didn't deny it. She simply whispered, I was trying to save you.